Monday.
Hey everybody, welcome back. This is part two of Azure Functions in GraphQL. Here with Simona Cotin. My name is Burke Holland, and Simona, what are we doing today in part two? What are we in for?
Hi, Burke. Hi, everyone. Today we're going to look into adding a graphical interface to our GraphQL endpoint. So last time we created a backend where we could run a couple of queries, and now we're going to be able to inspect those queries or to run those queries and inspect the schema for our application using a very nice UI.
Right. Now, this is the same UI that we looked at in the GitHub, right? When we were querying GitHub repositories, it's the same. We're going to put that UI on top of our GraphQL function that we created.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I've sent you a URL where you can basically access the UI that I've already created for the
And I want to go ahead and share my screen now.
Perfect.
All right. So yes, this looks very similar to what we saw in GitHub. And actually, let's move this over here. We'll get this out of the frame. All right.
Yeah, so now if you go to docs, you will see the schema for our mutation and for our query. So you can inspect some of the fields or the operations that we can run. For example, here, team, we can see that we have an ID, name, and points. And then, yeah, on the left-hand side, we can go ahead and run a query.
All right, let me I guess I'll just leave all this. Refresh, it's been a while since we did the last recording, so I don't remember how to do this. What do I do?
Perfect. You select all. Oh, no, select all and delete all the text that you have there.
Okay.
So now you type query because that's what we want to run.
Okay.
Okay. And then you open brackets. Exactly. I meant curly braces. And then teams.
And okay. There's the IntelliSense. Okay.
Yeah. And then now we need to select the fields that we want to have returned from our endpoint. Name, and then obviously we also want points because that's very important.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, last time green was winning, so hopefully.
We're about to find out.
And what this will do, it will connect to our Azure Functions endpoint, which is our GraphQL endpoint as well. And it will run the query. It will read data from Cosmos DB. And yeah, green is still winning.
Green's still in the lead. Nice. All right. So just so everybody remembers, this GraphQL sits on top of another REST service, which sits on top of the database. And the reason why you would do that is, we discussed this at the end of the last video, but I didn't get it until the very end of the video, is that it allows for people that are building the client applications to get just the fields that they need and not, so maybe, and actually Jasmine and I could have used this in our project because we're dealing with a lot of Twitter data, and Twitter has like 1 billion fields in every response. And you might need 6 out of the billion. So what you do is you pull down all billion fields and then you just display 6. But 99% of the data you don't even need. So if we had a GraphQL interface on top of that data, then I could have just said, give me the screen name, the ID, the time it was created, and the text, and that's all it would have given me, which is exactly what I needed.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of, and one of the advantages of using GraphQL. Basically saves up time and data.
Yes, I like it. I didn't understand that till the end of the last video, but I get it now. I'm a slow learner. All right, how can I get this on my function?
So where we can get started from is you just Googling Graphiql.
Okay.
And we're going to find an example there. So we have here a GitHub repository where we're going to find some samples on how to deploy this. Well, first of all, documentation on what Graphiql is and how to use it, how to implement it yourself, how to configure it. We can change the theme. We can change a bunch of other stuff. But what we're interested in is take an existing example and just deploy that one.
Okay.
And if you scroll up, there's a example repository there. Graphiql is built in React, so it's a React component. And if you open index.html, you'll see here that what we need is the Graphiql JS library and also Graphiql.css, apart from all the other React libraries. And then if you scroll down, there's a couple of configurations here, but the one thing that we're very interested in is the fetcher method, which is below.
GraphQL fetcher.
Yeah, and this is the method that's going to query our GraphQL endpoint, and it's going to query both for the initial query is going to query for the schema. So basically, using introspection, we're going to figure out what's the definition of our schema, and then the next queries, which we're going to execute things like teams or mutations, we're going to use the same endpoint as well.
Okay.
And as you can see here, the endpoint that's being queried here is relative. So it's like GraphQL. We're going to have to replace that URL with our deployed function that you should have.
This one right here.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So what do we do? Am I copying all this HTML out of here?
Yeah.
Does it work? Okay. So can I just go like this and pull it out?
Yeah, that's perfect. That's
All right.
exactly what I did as well.
Okay. And now what do I do?
So now you open VS Code.
Ah,
Your
I know
favorite.
I know how to do that. All right. And this is our functions project here, our voting app. Okay.
Yeah, and this can be part of our functions project. It can also sit outside. We can create a index.html file.
Just here?
Yeah, and you actually already have one.
Oh, that's right, because we were messing around with all the sidebar stuff. Okay, so
Yeah.
just pasted that in for everyone.
And there's one thing that we need to change here. As you can see in the head section.
Oh, sorry, I'm ahead. I moved ahead. All right, in the head. Sorry. Sorry.
No worries. We're referencing here a couple of node modules below.
Here.
So for testing purposes, the author has referenced the relative node modules, which we definitely don't have. So we can go ahead and search for those files on CDN.
On a CDN?
Yeah, or I could just paste you in the...
Just JavaScript CDN, CDN.js maybe. Graphiql.
Perfect.
Just Graphiql? Is that the only one? And the CSS.
Yeah.
So this should give us both of those. So we'll get the minified CSS and the minified JavaScript.
You're very brave.
Place this. Minified JavaScript. Okay.
Okay, and then the next thing that we need to change is the URL, the GraphQL endpoint.
Oh, that's right. Let's go down here.
So this has to be the URL from your function app that's deployed.
Oh, that's right. What did we call that? We called it API/GraphQL.
Yeah, but you still need to go get it from the Azure portal or from...
we need the full. Gotcha. Okay. So we can get that by clicking here and saying open in portal.
I wonder if we can copy the URL from the extension as well.
I don't think so. I was looking for that the other day, but I don't see a way to get it here.
Oh, okay.
but
Well,
maybe there is, and I just don't know.
we still need to use the portal further ahead, so that's perfectly fine.
Okay, it's loading up my functions here. Oh, there it is right there. That's the one we need. Come on. So it'll look something like that, I think, right?
Uh, yep,
Is that right?
that should be fine, yeah.
Okay.
We could still be using the localhost version of our functions, but because we already have the function deployed to Azure, I think it's okay to use it
Yeah, we might
directly.
as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we fire it up and test it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. I'm going to use something called Light Server, which is an NPM module. So we just say Light Server. Should just fire up and look for the index file. There it is.
Woohoo!
It says failed to fetch though.
Yeah. Can you try to open docs from your right-hand side? Okay,
Is it because I don't have cores on?
Ah,
400
perfect.
bad request.
Yeah, no, it's because of course.
Access control origin. Friggin' cores. All right, let's go back and enable cores. There are cores here under platform features. And I'm going to take all of these, although I got in trouble for doing this with Tanya the other day.
She
She's like,
wasn't
I
very
never
happy, right?
ever put a star in there. And I was like, yeah, but I just need it to work. So for everybody watching, we just took out everything and put a star in, which basically says anybody can hit this URL anywhere. We should come back later and update this when we publish the app to be just the right URL here. All right.
We don't want to get Tanya mad.
I saved it. What's going on?
So there's one more thing. If we look at the index.html file, it will try to authenticate, but because we don't have any authentication in place, we can actually remove the credentials just before JSON.stringify.
Here.
Below that, there's a credentials include field, and we can just remove that.
Will that fix it?
Yeah. Hopefully. But I think this is good news.
Got to give it a minute to warm up,
Yeah.
literally.
While that's happening, we can also look into so we have no schema available.
Did I do that right? Did I put in the right URL here?
Maybe we can use Postman to just make sure that we can execute queries here.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Is it a get?
A post. Should be a post.
And then body,
Body.
raw.
Okay,
Yeah,
that works.
that's working.
Perfect. And then if we run this again, if we look at the request, so if we inspect element and go to network and see the request itself, and then we look at the data and the parameters that we're sending, lower.
There's no.
Maybe the next one.
This one here? No, this one here.
Yeah, yeah. Wait. So what if we try to execute a query here?
And oh, here, up here. Okay,
Yeah.
let's try that.
Okay. And then we look at the request that we've just sent.
Okay, let's be down here at the bottom. Doesn't
Okay,
look like it's sending any data.
that's strange.
Here it is right here. It's on the refer.
Yeah. Maybe we can look at the, we can debug the script. But one thing that we can see immediately is that we have a query field. Yeah, let's inspect this script.
Which one?
Just go to sources,
Okay.
and we should look at index dot.
There it is.
Okay. And now if we look in the fetcher method that sends the data, we can look at the parameters, so maybe add a breakpoint there. And then run the query again.
It didn't break. Let's try that again. What? Come on.
No refresh, just run.
Here we go.
Okay, and if we look at the parameters, so one thing that I wanted to show here is that this request actually expects us to have an object that, a JSON object that has operation name, query, and variables. While previously we just sent text without anything else.
Okay.
So we have to go back to our function, and instead of expecting plain text, we should actually send the query as request.body.query.
Is that like normal for GraphQL? Is that expected? That's how it'll be?
Yeah, because
Okay.
that's how. So whenever we're using GraphQL clients as well, we're gonna have queries and variables. Um, so that would be the norm. What
Okay.
we did before was the quick solution.
So here we want to say rec.body.query.
Yeah, so on line 35, and we can even debug this if we connected from our Graphiql interface. If we connect it to our local host,
Yeah, I
we
can do
can
that.
debug this and see the objects.
Let's see here.
So you're right from the beginning, Bert, to just connect to this.
All right, here we go. What? Go back. Terminal. Here we go. Grab this.
uh, I think you might not have cores configured here either.
Oh, that's going to be a problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
We can do that here.
So we can, it's actually in local.settings.json.
Okay.
We add a new field below that in the new object. So we have values, and then we have host. And then I'm not sure if this is case sensitive, but it should start with capital H.
Okay.
Okay, and then here we add cores as a field in curly braces. Okay, cores all, yeah, and then you add star.
Ah,
We save this, and then because the runtime doesn't listen to changes to local.setting.json, we actually have to restart the runtime.
we have to restart the runtime. That's going to
Yeah,
need to do that. And then, all right, now let's update the index file with this new URL here. This is our local host.
perfect.
And boom, already.
Yay. Okay, so we can see that the body has, can we inspect the body object as well?
The body object? Yeah, yeah, yeah. There we go.
Yeah, so we have a query. Yeah, the object contains a field query, and then this is the introspection query that basically gives us all the schema information.
I don't watch over here. See if I can get inside of it. Oh yeah, it's a big string.
Yeah,
Okay. With this, we'll bring back the documentation and stuff like that, right?
yeah, like all the information about the types that we have, the operations that we have available,
Yep,
and
there it
voila,
is. It's working.
awesome.
All right.
So we can go ahead and run a query as well. Fantastic.
Perfect.
It returns the data. Maybe we can ask for points as well to make sure that we're connecting to the
Yeah.
right.
Make sure the green team's still winning. That's important.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we're now connected to the local endpoint. So what we need to do is deploy the new version of the function to Azure.
All right. So let me kill this, and then we'll come back to the extension and deploy. Yes.
Okay, and basically we have this GraphQL endpoint that can listen to requests from a Graphiql interface, but also from a React application, for example, or an Angular application. And it's now deploying to Azure Functions. And then the next thing that we want to do is host that index.html somewhere, right? Because we want to be able to expose that to everyone that might want to test it. And just to make it clear, this is something that probably we wouldn't want to enable in our production environment unless our API is open. So for example, with GitHub, their API is open for every developer out there, which means
Ah,
that they have the endpoint, the Graphiql out there open for everyone. Whereas if we were an internal company, we wouldn't want like a bank or something. We wouldn't want the API to be available. All our entire API wouldn't want it to be available for everyone. Maybe some of the public API that should be available.
yeah, that makes sense because I guess then everybody can see your API,
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
fields, the data. They could determine a lot about the structure of it and maybe do some bad things. So should we
Yeah.
test this locally before we publish it?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay. So let me save this, and that should refresh automatically. Is that right?
That should be maybe. Is it up?
Make sure. Oh yeah. I don't know. Uh, let's go back here.
Yeah. Let's make sure that the code that we wrote is being deployed.
um, here's our voting app. Yeah, that's right. And there's our change.
Okay. And then what else do I need to?
Let's run this again. There's something about that it does not like.
Can you go back? Now, so now in Postman,
Okay.
what we're sending here is raw text, but we need to send a JSON object
So
that
like this.
has a query field.
So
So we
like,
have, but we still need, so it will be an object that contains a query field, and then that will be the query that we're executing. So we still need the query word inside the text.
so like this.
Let's see. we do need query.
So we need.
Maybe we can go back to the browser and execute that query and see how the object looks like.
Okay, so here to the.
We have to inspect element and see.
Oh, hold on, it died. To figure out
Oh
why.
no.
Go to the terminal. Oh, it's because I stopped it inadvertently. Okay, and it's working. So we can look at the payload now.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Let me refresh. Of course, the breakpoint works now. All right, so let's go to network, and then we'll just do one of those.
Yeah, and let's see the object that's being sent.
The object is
Should be, so that's the last one that we're sending, right?
yeah.
And
What's going on?
let's run the query. Okay. If you scroll down, there's nothing there.
Let me. No. What's going on?
That's crazy.
There should be a data object in there. That's not possible.
Can you select all
Hey,
types of?
sure. Oh, there we go. You fixed it. There we go.
I wonder.
All right, let's copy this. Copy property path. Can I just copy the whole thing?
Maybe if you go to view source, so instead of viewing JSON, no, you're in the right place. Right next to request payload, you will see view source. It's not very visible.
Oh, right there. Yeah. Gotcha.
Okay. And that's your.
So it would look something like this.
Yeah, let's see if that works.
Ah, okay. Do we
so
need
you
the
see,
slash,
because
slash? You don't need that. That's just for formatting.
Yeah.
So we're pulling all out. I feel better about myself. Okay. Yep, it works. All right, so the format that we send GraphQL, and this is always the problem with web development, is that until you figure out what the service wants from you, like the format that it wants stuff in, it can be really tricky to debug and figure out what's going on. But we figured it out.
Yeah, and the idea is that the operation that you're running will always be inside your query, and then that could be a query in itself, or it could be a mutation, anything that you can do with GraphQL that will be part of your query object.
All right, so I get this. I understand this now.
Do you want to run a mutation as well?
Yeah, I don't know that I remember the syntax, but let's do it just for fun here. So I'm just gonna. Oh, I see. So what this is it's an object with a query property which has a string. That's a string. And then I wonder if, do you even need this right here?
No, we can delete it.
And it would still work.
Yeah. It's not required.
And it does. Okay, so then this would become mutation.
We could also go to Graphiql and then have everything autocomplete there, and syntax highlighting and everything, and then copy from here.
All right, so let's do, let me increase the font size here. Mutation, increment points. All right, so for everybody who was watching that, I don't remember what the mutations are, how we change the data, but I don't remember what we called those methods. So I just did control spacebar, and it automatically filled in the only mutation we've defined, which is increment. If we had had multiple mutations, it would have given us a list, I assume.
Exactly.
All right, so then here.
Do you want to go into the on the schema onto the mutation definition and see exactly what's expected?
Yeah, that's a good idea. So increment points, ID, team ID.
So we need to provide a parameter, which is what does exclamation mark mean, Burke?
Required.
Perfect. You got a
Yes.
10er.
Ah. And let's do one here,
Okay.
and that's it.
Yeah, and now what we need to do is basically, what does our operation return?
Returns a team
Exactly. And then what kind of fields does team have?
as an ID, name, and points.
Yep. We don't need a comma.
We don't need commas. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now if we run this,
Yep. 1186, 1187, 1188. Oh, that's the
fantastic.
red team. I don't want the red team to win. Green
I
team.
know, right? It's 2.
Oh, is it 2?
Yeah.
Arrays start at 1. All right. Okay. All right.
Okay, so now you can copy this once you've tested, and this actually shows us the power of Graphiql, where you write your query here, you test it, and then you copy it and paste it into the actual maybe Postman or even
Ah, so that's how you do it. So this becomes mutation
no, it stays query.
query. Okay. And then I just pasting in.
Yeah. So mutation is a type of query that we're executing.
Yep.
And
19092, 93, 94. All right. It's working.
cool. So the
So
next step, we've implemented this locally, we've tested it using the graphical interface, using Postman. So now the next thing that we want to do is make this available for everyone. So we have to deploy it to the cloud. And what we need to deploy to the cloud is the index.html file.
this
And
thing.
there's yeah, that's
Okay.
it. And there's a couple of options for us to deploy this file. We could deploy it wherever, obviously. But one of the easiest ways for us on Azure is using blob storage, because that's what it's made for. We can deploy, we can save static files there, and we can make them public, and they're going to be accessible for the wide internet.
Okay. Can I use my storage extension to do this?
You can do a couple of steps here, but eventually we'll have to go into the portal to make this public.
Okay, well let's go into the portal and do it from there. So let's do, I guess we need to create a new resource.
Yeah. Well,
And
we could go to the storage account that we've created for this particular function.
how do I find that?
So if you go to, maybe if you go into your function, just to see the resource group that we've used.
Voting app resource group.
If you click on that, what does it do?
Oh, it takes me directly there.
Awesome. So then we have a storage account there.
Okay. And so every functions app has a storage account, right? Like you have to have one. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that's because we need to store your code somewhere in a storage account. I mean,
Okay.
your code files need to be stored somewhere, so that when a request comes in, we need to deploy that code to a container.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess I'll click here.
Okay, and then if you go to, on your left-hand side, if you go to blobs, we can go ahead and create a new container here, which I named static, but you can name it whatever you want. And then you see there that you have public access, okay? So we want to have anonymous read access. Do you mind if you increase the font a bit? Because
Sure, yeah.
I can barely see.
I can barely see. All right.
So it's currently private, which means that it's not accessible by anyone. And we want to change it to blob. Okay, and then if you go into that one, if you click on static, you should be able to upload files here. There you go. There's an upload button there. And then you can select a file from your local host. from your local computer.
So
And now we're going to see through all of Berg's sensitive information.
there's nothing in here but a bunch of failed projects. Let's Serverless API. What do we call it?
I think it was serverless GraphQL.
I know, and I can't. If I sort by name, I can never find anything. Serverless API. Sorry, let me go back to the serverless GraphQL. It's not there. Let's do this. Watch this. Reveal in Finder.
Whoa.
All right, so this is sitting. Oh, it's sitting at a higher level. That's why we couldn't find it. So we need to go to Bert Holland, and it's actually at the same level. It is right here.
Perfect.
And we'll pull in part 1 and index.html. Okay.
Okay.
That's quick.
Yeah, and if you close this, yeah, we should be able, if you select the file, no.
Oh, sorry. Go back.
Yeah, but just use X, close the
Close
blade.
the blade.
Yes, the blade.
The blade.
If you select it by clicking, yeah, now, no, I was wrong. There's a way to get the URL for this file. Maybe, yeah, maybe you were in the right window.
I think it's.
Did you see a URL
here.
there?
Yeah, it's
oh,
there.
Yeah. Oh, that's why, because it's
grayed out, yeah,
yeah.
But it's there. If I mouse over, you can see the tooltip right there.
Okay, cool.
So we should be able to just.
Yeah.
Boom, there it is.
Awesome.
And now we'll say query. Let's look at the docs. Yep.
We have them there.
Yep, teams. So control space bar teams. ID, name, points, run it.
And
Boom.
boom.
It's working.
Yeah, and it's online.
And it's live for the world. And look at that. You can see it's appending the query up there in the
URL.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, this is great because it's already online and everyone can access it. But what we really want to do is kind of use the same URL and be able to define or to customize the URL that we can use. By convention, this will always be available at the same URL as your GraphQL endpoint. But instead of that, we need to use Graphiql.
Okay.
So right now it's available at index.html and the blob storage URL. But what we're going to do is we're going to create a new function app in the portal, and we're going to add proxies. And do you know what? Have you worked with proxies before, Burke?
A little bit, yeah. I'm familiar.
Okay, so with proxies, what we can do is merge together under the same URL multiple function apps or multiple endpoints. So now we can create a function app that has some proxies, and we will make available both this URL and our other function app under the same URL. Does that make sense?
So we need a second functions project to surface both the function and the graphical interface under the same URL.
Exactly.
Okay. So if I come back here,
we could go to the yeah, let's create a function app here. We could also go to the portal and create it from there.
I'm just gonna do here.
Okay.
Browse. We'll just call this. Let's go back up a level. We'll just call this part 2. And select this. JavaScript, I assume?
Yep.
Okay. add to workspace. We'll just do open in a new window.
Okay.
All right. And then okay, so
Let's scratch this bug, because I've just realized this is the bug that we're facing. So
ah,
if we create the function in our local, it will create the version 2 function, which doesn't work with proxies at the moment.
gotcha. So we
So
need to
we
go
had
to the portal.
yeah, and it will create a version 1 function by default.
Okay. Okay, so let's go to the portal, create a new resource, I assume. Function app.
Yep.
There you go. Create. Let's call it voting app.
You
What'd you
could
call
use
yours?
you could use GraphQL in your URL, just to make sure that one of the issues that I have is I have tons of functions and I never recall what are used for what.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's use the existing resource group
Yeah,
called,
probably something with voting. Yeah,
yeah, there we go.
and use the existing storage account.
Okay, is that it?
Yeah, you could either use an existing application insight. So application insights is now our default way of monitoring functions. So you could use a location and then yeah, create.
And
And from here,
I think it's being created. Hold on. No, I don't need that.
in notifications, everything's blurred out.
I know I can't see. Where's my notifications? There we go.
It's in progress. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna um, create two proxies that will link to or will point to the storage file, and then also to the function app, previous function app.
Okay, so let's do a new proxy.
Awesome.
Okay.
Let's name it proxy1 or something. This is generic name. And then the route template, let's use API. So slash API, and then let's do GraphQL here. Okay. And what kind of methods do we want to allow? Let's do get and post. And then the backend URL that we want to be able to call is the GraphQL endpoint.
Which is, we can pull that in from here.
Exactly. Okay, so this is the first one. You can create it.
Okay.
And then we add a new one, proxy2. And the route template will now be slash API Graphiql. Perfect. Again, the methods that we want to allow are get and post. And the backend URL will be the link to the HTML file.
Is here.
Cool. Let's hit create. So now we can copy the URL and test that it actually works.
Let's copy this. So this is, that's
We
the
want to test the,
GraphQL. But that won't work. That should say no.
yeah.
That should return, yep.
Perfect, score. I always get joy from things that work.
Oh, Teams.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. We did it.
Virtual high five. You've left me hanging.
Uh-uh. Sorry. All right. I think that's it, right? That's all we're doing today.
Yeah, that's all. Um, well, it's not very little, right? Because we managed to expose, so we built on top of
We
our
did a
existing.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one more thing that if you go back to the endpoint that I sent you earlier,
Oh, sorry.
I think that's
Yeah, let me
your
go back
your
to that.
second tab. That should be your second tab.
Yep, sure is.
Yeah. So if you look at this page, you'll see that below the query, the panel where you wrote the query, there's a query variables. And here, for example, when we're executing mutation, previously you've seen that we're hard coding variables.
Okay.
So instead of doing that, we can define operations, name them, and send variables by executing the query by sending them through query variables, and that's what the variables object or field was used for in the query as well.
So how do I do
So
that?
we could either, yeah, we could work through this or we could leave it as a homework, however you prefer.
Ooh, something for everybody else to figure out?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. If you made it this far, see if you can figure out how to use the query variables panel in Graphiql, and we will start out part 3 by working through that. Does it sound good?
Sounds perfect.
Excellent. All right. Well, next up is part 3, and we're gonna build an interface like with React, right?
Yeah, we're gonna create a React project using create React app, and we're gonna create a new app that's gonna connect to our GraphQL endpoint.
Awesome. That's gonna be great. Well, I guess then Simone and I will see you next time for part 3 of Azure Functions and GraphQL. Thank you, Simona.
Thank you, Berg. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.